and gentlemen, Sir Richard Branson. Yeah, grab a seat. Well, Richard, welcome to Liverpool. You got here this morning. What mode of transport did you use to get here to Liverpool?
Balloon?
No.
Boat?
No.
Plane? No. Oh, train.
Train.
Yes.
And how long did it take you to get from London to Liverpool?
Ooh, a lot less than it would have done 10 years ago.
There we go. Now, if any of you are a little bit worried about hearing him plug any Virgin brands, I think you need to take a Valium now. But anyway, okay. Let's talk about you. A lot of young entrepreneurs in the room, a lot of people not doing so well at school. You weren't the most academic child, were you?
No, I wasn't. I was, and I suppose still am, dyslexic, and so I would sit at the back of the class thinking about anything else than what was going on the blackboard.
But your passion at school was writing, wasn't it? You had a magazine at school?
The Vietnamese War was going on, and like a lot of young people, I wanted to sort of try to campaign to play my bit in trying to stop it, and so decided to try to start a magazine that would give a voice to young people.
Absolutely.
And so worked out of the school phone box and sold advertising to try to cover the printing and the paper costs, and managed to get enough sold, which made me think maybe I could leave school and run the magazine.
So you ran a magazine. Let's see the first slide now, because there's a picture of Student Magazine. Any idea who this gentleman is, this line drawing?
Well, it was a David Hockney, I think, drawing.
Okay.
Well, maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, and I don't know who the picture was of.
Some dude, as they say.
Some dude.
But using the skills that you've been using all your life, you got to interview some really interesting people, because we've got a nice shot here. The next one is one you got to interview Mick Jagger himself, maybe with your recording gear.
Yes, I mean, they obviously was a great fan of the Rolling Stones, and one day even managed to sign them to our record label many years later. But
strangely enough, there we go.
Oh, very good. You're very good.
I have a machine.
But you know, I've had a fascinating voyage of, and being an editor of a magazine. It's a wonderful way of learning, and so it was my education between 15 and 18, 19, just getting out, meeting people, interviewing people, learning, and so it was a different kind of education than schooling, but a good one, I think.
And I'm going to try and do a little bit of telepathy. I'm trying to think what the young Richard Branson is sitting there thinking. I think this is going to impress the ladies in the pub later. I've just interviewed Mick Jagger.
Oh yeah, I'm sure I name-dropped relentlessly. Archbishop Tutu has a good story, excuse me, about name-dropping. He says, everybody accuses me of name-dropping. Only last week, he said, I was at Buckingham Palace, and the Queen said, Arch, why are you always name-dropping? Anyway, yeah, I suspect I've had my fair share of wonderful people I've met in my lifetime, so lots of opportunity for name-dropping.
And you're passing it on. I can actually name-drop, saying I actually spoke to Sir Richard Branson last week.
Well, I'd be very flattered if you were to do any name-dropping.
That's very kind. Anyway, moving on, next thing you did was
he works for the Financial Times.
Not
I'm going to name-drop. Oh, no?
No, I moved to the Mail on Sunday.
Oh, God, we're not going to talk anymore. Right.
Please come back.
Actually, the Mail on Sunday is not quite as bad as the other one, but anyway, all right.
Okay. No, my first piece will actually be about this, so I promised to write something nice about it, so there we go.
Very good.
Anyway, you opened up a record store. Now, where was this? This was in Notting Hill somewhere?
Well, our first two stores we opened was in Bold Street, Liverpool. I just drove past it.
Yeah.
And this was in, well, actually the first three. This was in Notting Hill Gate, and then we had one above a shoe shop in Oxford Street. And basically, up until then, you got your records in a W.H. Smith's, and it was fairly bland and unexciting place to buy records. And if you went into a Virgin Record stores in those days, there would be pillows. You could most likely smoke a joint. And you get your bootlegs. Oh, sorry. And it was, the people knew about music. They knew what they were selling. So they knew what they were talking about. So people like coming to Virgin Records.
Well, I think the police have already picked up on this. There is a policeman obviously coming to arrest that hippie who's lurking there pretending to be an album cover.
Yeah, no, well, we've been there.
Right, moving swiftly on. Okay, so you have your records. And the first time I heard about Virgin was when I was in boarding school, and I actually bought an album off you. Mail order, because it was 40% off. I thought it was going to be delivered to the place. But I remember when I spoke to you first time, the business model you had was basically make a promise, which is records for 40% off, get the money, and then work out how to get the records. That was kind of the way you did it?
Well, we sort of knew, I mean, we look, a lot of people in this room who are trying to think, how can we set up a business without any money? And we didn't have any money, so we had to come up with ways of getting the money up front. So with our magazine, we sold advertising before we put the magazine out, and only when we had enough advertising sold to pay the printing and the paper costs did we then put the magazine out. With our record shops, we started a mail order company. We'd hand out leaflets outside concert halls. People would send in the money, and then we'd go to other record shops and negotiate discounts in order to be able to send the records out, and hopefully we got discounts bigger than the discounts we were actually offering because we had the volume. And so cash flow is everything, and sometimes you just have to be imaginative in that way to get a business going.
Absolutely, and then your next dream was to have your own record company. There's one small problem, which is you're not EMI, you're not Decca, you couldn't sign anybody, but you kind of struck lucky, I guess. Or was it luck or was it judgment that you signed this fella here?
Well, I hadn't planned to have a record company, but Mike Oldfield was 15, I was 16, and he played me this beautiful tape, all instrumental, Tubular Bells, and I took it to all the record companies. Nobody would release it. They said it needed vocals on it, and so I formed a little record company to put his music out, and managed to get some wonderful musicians to then play at the Queen Elizabeth Hall with him, Stevie Winwood and Mick Taylor from the Rolling Stones, and we got the BBC to play the concert, and anyway, and we managed to get bits in films like The Exorcist and so on, and it took off, and it was the start of building what became the most successful independent record label in the world. So it was a very exciting start.
And it got so big that you actually did a public flotation. And I'm going to show this picture because it's from your book as well. And this is the sensible men in the suits, because everybody thinks Virgin is just a bunch of people in jumpers who are a bit crazy. But you have got some grown-ups here who do spreadsheets and all that kind of good stuff.
Well, that was the only day they've ever worn a tie. And we were floating the company that day, and so this was trying to look as respectable as we could for the city, but they quickly took the ties off by the evening. So.
But really the point I'm making here is that, Virgin is not a one-man band. You've got to have a team of really good people, because, in there's Robert Deborah, your brother-in-law, very, very clever man.
Yeah, the important thing for, I think, everybody in this room who are building businesses is the art of delegation, and is to, very early on in life, find people who are better than you, to almost do your job, and from when I was by the time I was 19, 20, I'd already found other people to run whatever particular business it was that I'd just built up, and that then gave me the freedom to step aside and think about the next business and be entrepreneurial and sort out the big problems. So you've got to be brave and early on and step aside as often as you can. And I think in bigger companies, every manager of every department should try to make sure that there is somebody there who can do the nitty-gritty of the job, so they can think about the bigger picture.
Yeah, because we've had a couple of really good learning points already. First is obviously follow your passion, believe in the stuff, and if you believe in something, go for it. And then, I love that one, hire people better than yourself. Be honest about that. You can't do everything yourself. Understand what your strengths and weaknesses are, and get people to cover for you.
Absolutely. I think, and then not to second guess them. I mean, the important thing is just give them the freedom to make mistakes, give them the freedom to make good things, people leave companies because they're not they're not given the opportunity to do things, and they get frustrated, and so a lots of delegation and leave them to get on and some things they'll do differently than you and better. Some things they may do not quite as well, but you know, Virgin could not have turned into 300 companies if I'd tried to do everything myself.
Absolutely. The phrase I love to use at that point is always, why buy a dog and bark yourself? Get people better than you and let them get on with it.
Very good. I'll use that one day.
You'll be very good. Now, something I always say to entrepreneurs is when you're starting off, the key thing is to make some money. So if you're not making any money, there's something wrong with the model. You know, the thing isn't working. And I always say that you start off just making money, make money, and the more you've got, the better you're doing. And it suddenly turns into monopoly money. For example, when you go public, there's this great shot in the newspaper here of, you know, Branson sells for 500 million pounds cash. But what I loved reading about in your book was the reaction you had to that. You looked at that and...
burst into tears.
Have you ever the expression, money doesn't make you happy? I think this is living proof of it.
No, I mean, well, first of all, going back a bit, I actually don't think that most people who think, how can I make a lot of money, are going to make a lot of money. I think what you need to do is think, how can I make a real difference to other people's lives? You know, what idea have I got that's going to make a real difference to other people's lives? And then embark on that, and then at the end of the year, try to make sure the bills, you know, you can pay your bills. And if it's really making a difference to other people's lives, hopefully you'll have more money coming in than going out. And if you embark on a venture passionately like that, and then you have to sell it, which I had to with the record company because we had British Airways trying to put our airline out of business. You know, you're selling people. You're not, it's not a good feeling selling something you feel passionately about. But anyway, I got over it and have used the resources from the sale of the record company to do, you know, lots of other wonderful things. So no regrets.
So money doesn't make you happy, but it does make misery more comfortable, I've noticed.
I think you know, the wonderful thing about being successful and having money, I mean, first of all, enormous responsibility comes with having money because, you know, you're one of the few fortunate people who've, you know, got into that position. And I think that the responsibility to get out there, you know, create more jobs, you know, tackle some of the bigger problems in the world, and just make sure that you put that money to good use and you don't, you know, just use it for sort of just for family, but get out and put it to good use.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned British Airways. Let me show you probably my favourite Sun headline of all time.
the editor actually thought it would. He was hoping it was going to be the other way around, but fortunately for us, it was that way around.
Because we basically, I mean, what's interesting about Virgin for me is that you didn't think up the idea of an airline, you just thought you'd do it better. You saw British Airways, for example, you thought, I can do that better. And at first, you had one plane, they had hundreds, it didn't mean anything, but gradually you started getting in their face. And what happened here, as I understand it, and please correct me if this is wrong, is that they eventually resorted to dirty tricks. They did bad things, and you were able to pick them up on it.
Yes, I mean, the reason that Virgin survived with one plane against BA's, you know, 350 planes, and the way that any company in this room will survive is you just got to be better than the competition. If you're smaller, if you're a smaller hotel chain, or you're a smaller club, or you're a smaller restaurant, you've got to be better than the big chains. And in every single aspect, I think, you know, Virgin Atlantic was better, and therefore, when BA did everything they could to drive us out of business, the public stuck with us, and then we ended up taking them to court and winning a very celebrated case against them called about the dirty tricks campaign they were waging, and got the biggest settlement damages in history, and then, you know, gave it to all our staff at Christmas, and we called it the BA Christmas bonus for all the Virgin staff. So.
Excellent. And yeah, I mean, again, another good learning point, which is just be better than the competition. It's a great story about the Beatles. They heard Pet Sounds by Brian Wilson, which was better than Revolver, but then they produced Sgt. Pepper and it gave them a nervous breakdown. Anyway, next picture, I found this on the internet. This is really for two reasons. One, to show that you will not stoop to any depths to promote a product. You'll dress up as anything. which is great. And that's obviously part of what you do.
I think that would have put people off buying it, actually. I don't know who made me put that on, but anyway.
It seemed like a good idea at the time. But again, first time I interviewed you, I threw a question at you without asking you, but you handled it very well, which is, not all the Virgin companies have been a success. And I said, well, would you talk about one that wasn't a success and why that wasn't? You talked about Virgin Cola, so let's hear about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, before I embark on this, I think, again, we've got a group of entrepreneurs in the room, and if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to have, some things are going to work, some things are not going to work. And the important thing is just to pick yourself up. If you have a failure, brush yourself off and, move on to the next project. And I know it sounds easier said than done, but, there are many entrepreneurs around the world who've had numerous failures. I think the difference between taking on Coca-Cola and taking on British Airways was, in a nutshell, taking on British Airways, we could have a product that was much better than them, and therefore when they resorted to putting us out of business, people stuck with us. With a soft drink, we tested Virgin Cola against Coke. It came out slightly better, but it was much for muchness. We launched it. It was gigantically successful. I mean, we were outselling Coke and Pepsi and Tesco's and everywhere it was being sold. And, for a glorious year, we thought we were going to knock the biggest brand in the world to number 2 position. But back in Atlanta, an English lady went along to see the president of Coke and said, look, this little upstart Virgin company could take Coke. It's maybe one of the few brands in the world that could do it. Give me a SWAT team, give me an unlimited budget, give me 100 people, we'll fly to England and we will put them out of business. And initially, he didn't take us seriously. 2 months later, he rang her up and said, okay, you're getting on the next plane to England. They flew to England and they went to Tesco's, they went to everywhere that we were on sale, and slowly you could just see all our drinks being taken off the shelves as they wrote out massive checks to drive us out of business. And the difficulty there was we didn't have that extra edge. So so what we've learned from that is we've got to, if we go into new businesses, we just got to be so much better so that if they try those kinds of tricks, we can withstand it.
Because your next venture is, let's go for the banks. I mean, this was a picture a few years ago when you first started Virgin Money, but you're really going for it now. You've bought part of Northern Rock, and you're going to take on these big high street banks that entrepreneurs love so much.
Yeah, I think it's the perfect time for Virgin to go into the banking industry. Banks are very discredited, and I think we've got a brand that people trust. We've got products that we can come out with, which will be very competitive, and I think we can do it with a little bit more panache than they've done it in the past, and so we managed finally to get Northern Rock on the second try. Fantastic group of people worked there. Met most of them. I think actually I did meet most of them in Newcastle and Scotland, and I think we'll build a great financial service company there. And
again, you've got the right team working on it. You're not in there day to day. You're busy doing stuff like this, which is, while they're doing that, why don't they go into space? I mean, is this a business, or is this just fun, or is it a combination of the two?
Well, as I said earlier, I don't start anything thinking of it as a business. I start things because I think I can make a difference. I'm going to enjoy doing it. You only live once. You might as well do something you have a real passion for. Now, I've always wanted to go to space, but if you could jump on a Russian spaceship, it costs $60 million, and I felt that would be an extravagance. And also I felt that, for not much more than that, maybe we could develop our own spaceship companies. So I went off around the world looking for an engineer or technician who could build a spaceship which would hopefully offer return tickets. And I found the genius in Bert Rutan, and he built Spaceship One, won the X Prize, three flights into space. And we're now building a much bigger version of Spaceship One, and hopefully early next year, myself and my children will go up into space, and hopefully, many people in this room in their lifetime will have the opportunity to become astronauts. I think we'll be able to drive the price down in the years to come, and I think very exciting things can come from it. Maybe intercontinental travel at a fraction of the time that one currently can go on intercontinental travel. Travel outside the Earth's atmosphere, so it won't actually damage the atmosphere. Deep space exploration, maybe hotels in space. We know that we're going to be able to put satellites into space at a fraction of the price that it currently costs to put satellites into space. So we dreamt, and we're now trying to make our dreams become reality.
Now, part of the entrepreneur's journey, just like money becomes a different thing as you get more successful, the whole name-dropping thing moves from impressing people in the pub to actually doing some good in the world. So let's do a bit of name-dropping here. Let's talk about the elders.
The elders came about in the build-up to the Iraqi war, and again, I suppose having been against the Vietnamese war, I was against, like millions of other people in the UK, the invasion of Iraq, and as a businessman, always try to think, how can we, how is there any way of us intervening to try to stop the war happening, and what sort of entrepreneurial way could we come up with to stop it? And I contacted Nelson Mandela, as you do, and asked if he would consider going with Kofi Annan to see Saddam Hussein and to try to persuade him to step down and go and live in Libya. And they agreed to go, and we sent a plane to Johannesburg. Saddam Hussein agreed to see them, and we felt we had a reasonable hope of success, because the alternative for Saddam Hussein was the complete destruction of his country and the almost definite loss of his own life. Anyway, the day the plane was meant to take off from South Africa, the war broke out, and the trip never took place. But what it got us thinking was maybe in situations like that, there could be a group of elders on standby who could actually go into conflict situations and try to resolve them. So Kofi Annan, Nelson Mandela, President Carter, Mary Robinson from Ireland, 12 wonderful people agreed to come together and become the elders, and they will go into conflict situations. I mean, Kofi Annan is now in Syria, seeing whether there's anything he can do there. He's before that managed to help knock heads together in Kenya when a conflict was developing there. So they'll go into conflict regions and try to resolve conflicts. And we run the elders just like we'd run a business. We have a very good chief executive running it. It's properly funded. The elders are given complete freedom to get on and make the decisions. That there's no interference from the people who've set it up or the people who are funding it. And hopefully, in 100, 200 years' time, the new the 12 most respected people of that era will be there running the elders and speaking out about issues that they feel strongly about.
Excellent. Well, now we're going to come on to another of your great passions, which is all around Virgin Unite, which is a not-for-profit which does some good work. And what we're going to do is, pretty soon we're going to bring on some emerging media pioneers from the Branson Centre, because your new book, you see, I saw that and I thought that absolutely sums it up. Do good, have fun, and of course, screw business as usual. Because what's interesting about the book, when I read it, was there's every model for social enterprise in there, not just Virgin examples, but things like the Big Ish and whatever. So there is a possibility to run a proper business that makes proper money and do some good in the world. That's what the book's all about. So those of you who know me know that I'm really big into mentoring. Mentoring is probably the single most important thing you can do to improve your business. And mentoring should always be free. So what I'm actually going to try and do is to get some free mentoring going on with some young people who have got some questions and businesses. So first we're going to have from the Virgin Media Pioneers, let me welcome on stage Zoe Jackson. Would you like to come on? Congratulations. Would you like to take a seat there? So Zoe, if you wouldn't mind, here's your microphone. If you just explain first what Virgin Media Pioneers and then just talk about your business, which is a lot of fun.
Hello everyone. Virgin Media Pioneers is a fantastic online community to support young entrepreneurs, and I run a performing arts company called Living the Dream that I set up when I was 16 and I'm now 22, and our ethos is to provide affordable access to the arts for young people and to inspire them.
And you employ 15 people, I understand?
I do.
15 people. Be nice to your staff, top tip. Now, do you have just one question for Richard right now? One thing that, you know, he can say, I wish I'd known that when I was your age. Got one question?
Well, after reading your book, I think one of your ethoses is close to my heart about doing good and the business will come. I am doing good and the business is coming, but what else can I do to have an amazing business that is making a difference to young people's lives, but to ensure that the business does come with that as well?
Well, I'd take my hat off to you for doing good early on, because that's difficult. I mean, the first thing that's absolutely critical is for you to survive, to be able to pay the bills, keep your 15 people in work. And I think, you know, the way to do that is to be a great motivator, to really care about, you know, the 15 people who you're working with. Look for the best in them, and not jump down people's throats. But I'm sure you do that already, so I've got a feeling you don't need much advice from me.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Zoe. Now, we're going to come back to you, but next I'm going to introduce on somebody from the Branson Centre for Entrepreneurship down in Soweto, near Johannesburg, because, as you probably noticed, a lot of stuff is Virgin branded. Very few things are Branson branded, and this is one of them. So it's my great pleasure to introduce on stage Simon Yeager. Now, there are two Branson Centres for Entrepreneurship. I was lucky to be at the launch of the one in Montego Bay recently, but you're from Johannesburg, so just tell a little bit about the Branson Centre, and also let's talk about your business as well, Afro Park, which is a lot of fun.
All right. The Branson Centre of Entrepreneurship in Johannesburg is basically an organization that's set up in order to support young businesses and new businesses and help them be more successful. My business, Afro Park, is based in Johannesburg. We manage car parks, and in doing so, we try and rejuvenate the dilapidated inner city. What I love about the Branson Centre is that it's not just about the softer skills, which we always hear about, the rock and roll things like passion and love. It's also about practical skills like, you know, accounting and bookkeeping, that sort of thing. So they help support young businesses and help us be successful too.
So if you've got one question for Richard right now, a burning question about your business, what would that be?
Earlier I mentioned, you said that people are a very important component, obviously, in growing a business. How would you find or bring out the specific skills that you need in order to help grow your business through your people? How do you bring that out in people?
Yeah, well, it's good to meet you again, and I think what you're doing is fantastic. No, I think you've just got to find the right people for the job. I mean, we were talking earlier about trying to, you know, not be frightened about finding people that are, you know, that are actually better than you, and you know, maybe even give them a stake in the company, or give them a stake in a small division of the company, so that they can, you know, they can feel they can do really well from the success of your company, or give them a share of profits. And I mean, you've got not many employees, have you? How many have you got?
We've got 7 at the moment.
How many?
7.
7. Okay.
Yeah.
And is there one really key person?
There is one key person who's sort of a business partner as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've brought him into the company, or
correct, already.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, and I think that's you know, that's often wise. But you know, if you're the founder, you want to keep the ultimate control yourself. Good luck.
Well, just to let you know, you can support the Branson Centre through Virgin Unite. There's a lot of stuff you can do both in South Africa and in Jamaica. Also, Richard actually reminded me that obviously he'd love to take questions from everybody. The best way to contact him is through the Twitter feed @RichardBranson. Please do send in your questions, comments, and he will answer as many as he possibly can.
I'll try.
He'll try. And it's definitely him answering all his own tweets. Excellent. Of course it is. Now, the last two people I'm going to bring up are the winners of the Global Entrepreneurship Week Startup Open. It's obviously organised by Kaufman. So please welcome on stage Kavita Shukla and Swarab Samat. Sorry. Come on down. Well done. Now, the good news is Richard has your prizes to award.
They're not very beautiful boxes, the prizes, but they're, anyway, well, congratulations. Well done, both of them. Yes, nice.
Great. So
Thank you.
Would you like to take a seat over there? Now, the last winners got to receive their prizes on Necker, but you had a bit of a mishap, didn't you? So that's what they did.
Yeah, there was a little, lightning strike, which got rid of the home, but we're rebuilding, and it'll be even better when it's finished.
Excellent. Could you just explain briefly what the Startup Open was, and then if you've got a question for Richard, we'll do that.
Sure. So the Startup Open was a global competition where entrepreneurs from across the globe were able to participate and present their ideas. And basically, Fenugreek was selected. We were incredibly surprised. First, they selected a list of the 50 most innovative young companies across the globe, which was the GEW 50. And then we were one of the grand prize winners out of that. So.
Excellent. Well, have you got one question for Sir Richard Branson?
Absolutely. So we have a very simple innovation. It's a piece of paper that keeps food fresh. And so we're a very sort of small company that's taking on quite an established industry. And I was just wondering, what would be the one piece of advice that you'd have for taking on such things?
What's the brand you've called the company?
It's called Fenugreek, and we have the paper is called Fresh Paper. So.
It's a business. You're trying to sell it to businesses, not to the consumer, are you?
Both. So we have some that is sold to farmers to keep their food fresh, as well as to consumers as well.
And how are you getting out and promoting and marketing it at the moment?
Well, we only launched about 8 months ago, and
Right.
we've done no marketing or advertising, but sort of through word of mouth. We started in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
We've now started shipping worldwide. It's actually doing quite well in parts of Europe. We're shipping to the Philippines and Chile, but so far we haven't really.
I think that the best form of marketing is free marketing, and I think the more you can just get out, use yourselves to get your product on the map, through interviews, through any trick you can think of, try to get the brand established. Taking full page advert, it might make a little bit of difference, but full page article written about yourselves. And so at Virgin, our public relations people, I'm not sure they're the best paid people. They're going to come and see me afterwards if they're not. But anyway, we treat them very, very, very importantly. And we also, for instance, now take new media very importantly. I mean, I've got nearly 5 million followers on our various Twitters and Google Pluses, and get very involved myself. And that's something worth you really trying to build up a following over the time, I think. I wouldn't waste your time spending a lot of money on conventional advertising, and try to be unconventional. And even if that means making a fool of yourself occasionally, just try to make sure you get on the front pages and not the back pages.
That's very good.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to have what they call in America a stand-up and stretch break. I've no idea what that means, but stand up and stretch wherever you wish to. Refreshments can be purchased on the concourse. The Backbeat Beatles are going to do another session. But before that, can you thank Sir Richard Branson for attending and all the winners on the side today?